So now we're coming to the third speaker. The topic is yet again very fascinating and interesting. It's called Modern India's Literary and Linguistic Heritage, Some Pioneers. It's going to be very interesting. So Dr. Joshua Kalapati is a retired professor and former head of the Department of Philosophy at the prestigious Madras Christian College, where he taught for 34 years until 2019. He completed his BA and MA in philosophy at MCC and his PhD in 1994 and a master's in theology from New College, Edinburgh. Dr. Kalapati is co-author of Life and Legacy of Madras Christian College and served as associate editor for the Oxford Encyclopedia of South Asian Christianity Project. He is founder director of the Center for Peace Studies at MCC, Madras Christian College, and has authored, edited 5 books and over 80 articles in national and international journals. Amazing. His recent work includes Christian Contribution to Modern India. Dr. Kalapati currently serves as the honorary director of Mylapore Institute for Indigenous Studies in Chennai. His academic visits include prestigious institutions such as Harvard Divinity School in Cambridge, Oxford, Cambridge, and participation in significant global conferences. He received the Bharat Ratna Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Award for his contribution to higher education and research. Now we will invite Dr. Joshua Kalapati to speak on the topic that was mentioned earlier, Modern India's Literary and Linguistic Heritage, Some Pioneers. Over to you, Dr. Joshua.
Good evening, Dr. Ralte. Good evening, friends. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizers for this wonderful opportunity and the privilege that is extended to me. At the outset, I would like to make 3 comments. First of all, there is so much that is documented about Christian contribution to literature and language and many other areas, which is there in the academic circles. And we need to bring this to the public domain and popular understanding. Secondly, there are so much that is yet to be explored. We need to do research and then document the Christian contribution to modern India. And thirdly, also, we could relate the message of Christianity to Indian context without offending or hurting the people of other faiths. With these comments, I would like to make my presentation. As you see the overview, it is to explore the contribution of key figures who shaped modern Indian literature and languages, Christian missionaries and scholars who documented, standardized, and developed Indian languages. And also there are native scholars who advanced literary forms and linguistic studies. And there is long-lasting impact on education, printing, and cultural preservation as well. My first slide. In the first part of my presentation, I would like to trace 3 important women who made seminal contribution to our literary heritage. And they are not so well known, but yet we need to recognize and celebrate the contribution of these 3 women who made a great contribution. First one is Dr. Krupabai Satyanathan. She is Marathi born. Because of traumatic family situations, she came down to Madras, and fortunately she was sheltered by well-known missionary in Madras, the well-known family of Pastor W.T. Satyanathan, and soon she started her medical studies. She was one of the earliest medical graduates from Madras Medical College, and she married Dr. Samuel Satyanathan, a very well-known Indian Christian leader in Madras who rendered seminal services. And soon, Dr. Samuel Satyanathan tried to bring out her literary talent. He encouraged her to start contributing to magazines around. And that's how Krupabai started contributing to Madras Christian College magazine. And 2 of her works are so well known. First one was Saguna and the second one Kamala. Both these works were serialized in the Madras Christian College magazine, which is one of the oldest ones, which was started way back in 1873. And these works were not so recognized until recently. The Oxford University Press recognized these works, especially Saguna, and said and hailed Krupabai Satyanathan as the author of the first autobiographical novel in English by an Indian woman. What a great compliment that is. And her work was so well recognized that even reached Queen Victoria, who was so impressed that she wanted to get familiar with more writings of Dr. Krupabai. And but sadly, Krupabai died at a very young age of 32 years. The second woman I would like to, next slide please. Yes. And the second woman I would like to present to you is Kamala Satyanathan. And Kamala Satyanathan was born into a very distinguished family in Machilipatnam. Her grandfather was greatly influenced by missionary Nobel in Machilipatnam. Her father and grandfather also became scholars, and that's how she had upbringing in Christian atmosphere. And slowly she moved into Madras and started to get familiar with the literary circles. And very soon, Dr. Samuel Satyanathan, who lost his first wife at a very early young age, he married Kamala Satyanathan. In fact, her name was first name was a different one, and her name was changed to Kamala Satyanathan in remembrance of one of the novels, the title of one of the novels of his first wife, and therefore Kamala was added to her name. And soon she started contributing to the journals around. She contributed 7 articles on Hindu heroines to Madras Christian College magazine. This is a wonderful elucidation of some of the well-known pious characters in Hindu literature, like Sita, Damayanti, and all these 7 are well appreciated. And not just this, she started the very first magazine exclusively for Indian women, and that was titled Indian Ladies Magazine, which she edited single-handedly for almost 40 years, with a break of some 8-9 years in between because of variety of problems she had to encounter. But just imagine somebody in the first decade of 20th century single-handedly editing Indian Ladies Magazine, to which some of the well-known authors of the day contributed articles, such as Sarojini Naidu and many others contributed articles on interests of women. And she was so well recognized. She was made a royal member of the Royal Asian Society, and also she was made a member of the Senate of Andhra University and also Madras University. And that was the great recognition that Kamala Satyanathan had received. And her own daughter, Padmini Sengupta, wrote her biography, and therefore the biographical details are so well known. This is probably the only photograph that is available, and her family members very graciously extended this photograph of Kamala Satyanathan along with Dr. Samuel Satyanathan. The third slide is yet another woman, a young girl, a Bengali girl, Torudat. Some of you may be familiar with this name. Young girl, she died hardly 21 years of age. Her father and grandfather came under the influence of missionaries in Calcutta, and they embraced Christianity. Her father being Gopal Dutt, being a government servant, he traveled around, and wherever she went, he used to take the 3 children along with him. So when he was in France, that's when Torudat started not only reading but mastering French language. And later on in England, she mastered English literature and language. And that's how she became a prodigy of multiple languages. She became so fluent in English, in French, Sanskrit, besides her own mother tongue of Bengali. And she translated one into the other. Just imagine, hardly 21 years, and she did contribute so much. She wrote poems and essays and novels and quite a few translations. And she contributed to Bengal Magazine and Calcutta Review. And sadly, she died when she was hardly 21 years. And epitaph carries the beautiful, very powerful faith of the family. It reads from Revelation 2:10, "Be faithful unto death, and I will give you the crown of life." Next one. In the second part of my presentation, I would like to share how Christians also contributed to language development. And some of these were also earlier covered by both the speakers, and I don't want to spend much time. William Carey, the Serampore press published 212,000 volumes in 40 languages by the year 1832. And then all of you know how many journals and magazines he started in printing. Carey also translated Ramayana and Mahabharata. That shows his tolerant attitude towards the people of other faiths. And also, very interestingly, he played a very important role in social reform movement. When Lord Bentinck wanted to translate the legislation of banning sati, he sent it to William Carey. And it seems Carey spent the whole night translating that into Bengali, and that's how that became the very next day legislation. So he believed that would prevent the death of some women, and therefore that was the importance that he attached to translating this. Next one. And there are quite a few others who contributed to language. And Joseph I Samir and J.V.S. Taylor was also earlier referred to. And there were three missionaries. His father, John Taylor, was a missionary, but soon entered government service. And this is J.V.S. Taylor as a missionary, and his son, G.P. Taylor, all LMS missionaries in India. They made a seminal pioneering contribution to Gujarati literature, and therefore he is hailed today as the father of Gujarati grammar. He published Gujarati Bhashanu Vyakaranamu in 1867. Just imagine, so many years ago he did that. And he inspired generation of Gujarati scholars. That included Father Carlos Wallis, who wrote, he's a Jesuit father. He wrote as many as 75 books, and his death was condoled by none other than our Prime Minister, Sri Narendra Modi. He condoled the death of Father Carlos Wallis. That was the impact of this father on Gujarati literature. Next one. Also, you have other missionaries. Perhaps the well-known among the missionaries is Robert Caldwell. It's very much in the news in the recent years. We don't need to go into all the controversies, but one book became such a seminal contribution, a comparative grammar of Dravidian languages, published way back in 1857, which traces the linguistic similarities of South Indian languages, as many as 9 languages, how they form a separate family of languages. And that became so well known, so impactful, and so powerful that inspired some social reform movements in South India, especially in Tamil Nadu, and that gave impetus to Dravidian identity. And therefore, Bishop Robert Caldwell is today one of the most admired scholars and philologists. You see here, these two missionaries are also referred to earlier, and these are the missionaries who came to Mizoram, and they learned the language, and they published in Lushai Mizo dictionary with 33,000 words. Just imagine how much of time and energy and how much of money they would have spent in learning this language and bringing out this missionary. And they landed on January 11th, 1894, and that's a very important day for Mizo people. Next one, also earlier referred to, Father Camille Bulke, Jesuit priest, and he hardly knew, a Belgian priest, he hardly knew English or even Sanskrit or even Hindi. But after landing here and becoming part of, he started teaching in a Jesuit college, and he became the first PhD from Allahabad University to do a doctorate in Hindi. And this was the great distinction of Father Camille Bulke. And he was such a well-known, distinguished lexicographer. He was awarded Padma Bhushan, and he created Hindi-English glossary in 1955. He compiled English-Hindi dictionary with 40,000 words. And he became such an expert on Tulsi Das's Ramcharit Manas. He was invited all over Uttar Pradesh and many other parts in North India. And he used to deliver talks on Ramcharit Manas because he became such a well-known scholar of Ramayana. And Ferdinand Kittel was also earlier referred to, and he is today revered by some Kannada scholars as Kannada saint, and that was the admiration they have. He compiled the Kannada English dictionary with 70,000 words in 1,700 pages. As a missionary, as a Basel missionary, he worked as a priest in Mangalore, Madikeri, and Dharwad, And that's wherever he went, he used to learn their dialect, and he used to learn so many words, regional words, and all this he compiled into his dictionary. And he concluded the preface with these words: "All glory to God." And Herman Goodert also is referred to. He created the first comprehensive Malayalam English dictionary. He spent 25 years on research and compilation. And fortunately, we have a very good biography written by Albrecht Brench, was a family member. And one of the distinguished family members was Hermann Hesse, who wrote the biography of the Buddha. Next one. So likewise, several other languages were rendered pioneering services by Christian missionaries. And it's not just the missionaries. There were many others as well. I will briefly allude to these as well. As you know, there was a very fierce controversy between Orientalists and Anglicists for about 20-30 years in the early 19th century. On one hand, you have Orientalists, on the other, you have Anglicists. Whether the native languages should form the medium of instruction for education or English language, that was the bone of contention. But for both these groups, I tell you, missionaries and Christian thinkers made seminal contributions. You have Orientalists, three of the best known: William Jones, Monier Williams, and Max Muller. They did pioneering studies in Sanskrit language. In fact, they laid a foundation for Sanskrit language. Can you imagine Max Muller editing 50 volumes of sacred books of the East? 50 volumes he edited, and without ever setting foot in India, he did that. Likewise, William Jones and Monier Williams were equally distinguished. On the other side, you have those who promoted English language, like Thomas Babington Macaulay, and also some of the well-known Scottish missionaries like Alexander Duff, John Wilson, or John Anderson in Madras. And they supported that English should be the language, and that's how it came to be accepted in 1835. And that's how first universities came up in 1857 in Calcutta, Madras, and Bombay, and English was accepted as the medium of instruction in higher education. There were also chaplains who were appointed by the company, and there were 5 chaplains, and all were outstanding scholars. Those who had studied in Cambridge and Oxford, they came here and as chaplains, just catering to the needs and ministry of the company alone, East India Company alone. And some of them became pioneering scholars. Just to mention Henry Martin, he did pioneering translations of Bible into Urdu and Persian language, and his name is perpetuated, especially in Henry Martin Institute in Hyderabad. And you have Murray Mitchell and John Wilson, and 2 of them mentored Mahatma Jyotiba Phule. Mahatma Jyotiba Phule studied in Scottish Mission School, and that's where he was exposed to Western literature, to the biographies of Martin Luther, Washington, and writings so many. He exposed that he understood there is inherent dignity in every individual, and therefore he defied all the class hierarchies. And there were also civil servants like Charles Philip Brown, and he became the father of Telugu Renaissance, and he was very much part of what Trotman calls Madras School of Orientalism. These 3 societies, Asian Society of Bengal, and then Madras School of Orientalism, and Bombay School of Orientalism, they laid the foundation, literary foundation. And most of the members happen to be either Christian missionaries or Christian scholars. And you also have native scholars. It's not just the overseas scholars coming in here and doing pioneering studies. We also have very many native scholars. I would like to just mention 2 of these. One is Michael Madhusudan Dutt, who is a pioneer of Bengali literature. He introduced blank verse, he introduced sonnet and modern comedy and tragedy. And his the very first modern epic, Meghnad Vadakavya, 1861, was so well recognized. And today he is such a well-known revered figure in Bengali literature. And one of his descendants happened to be Leander Pace, the well-known tennis star. In one of his interviews, he says, Michael Madhusudan Dutt is one of my ancestors, therefore I have the creativity in me. The next one, Baba Padmanji, also well-known native scholar, and he did the first autobiographical novel in Marathi language. He was a radical social reformer, and recently a wonderful biography of on Baba Padmanji was brought out by Deepra Dandekar. Just the last 2 or 3 sites, I'm very happy to share with you that my book is ready and it will be formally launched soon. And this is titled Christian Contribution to Modern India, and commemorating the 75 years of Indian independence and also adoption of the Constitution, 75 years of Indian Constitution. I have chosen 75 persons, 75 short biographies of Indians and overseas scholars, who made outstanding contributions to modern India. And these are organized into 18 different categories, and each article focuses on their chronology, their contribution, and also contemporary relevance. And in this book, you would find 8 missionaries. There are cinema and short film pioneers. I'm not recommending that you watch movies. I don't watch myself. But the very seeds of movies and short films were sown by Christians. The father of Tamil cinema, Father Vincent Swamikannu, and the father of Malayalam cinema, J.C. Daniel, were outstanding Christians. And even the father of Indian cinema, the Dada Saheb Phalke, one day he watched the film Life of Jesus along with his wife and says, see what an impact it was making. This was in the first decade of 20th century. And we should make movies on our own gods, Rama and Krishna. That was the inspiration that they derived from this film on the life of Jesus. And therefore, I included that. There are 2 civil servants, 7 educationists, freedom fighters, Gandhians, the well-known Kumarappa brothers are included there. 2 of them are outstanding Gandhians. You have one industrialist. The father who developed Coimbatore is included there. You have publishers. All of us have heard of Higginbotham's. There's hardly any town or railway station where you don't find Higginbotham publishing house or a bookstore. It's an amazing story, I tell you, how he developed the very first store here in Madras. And that story you find there. These are all stories, very interesting stories. You have language developers, some of whom I covered in this, 9 of them. Next one, you have legal professionals. They were legal luminaries, 2 of them. Medical professionals, quite a few of them. Musicians are included, one from classical music and the other from Western classical. You have political leaders, you have social reformers and social workers. You have sports persons, a very, very interesting category, I tell you. The very impetus to Olympic movement was given here in YMCA Nandanam. Thanks to the father Buck, missionary Buck came here. It was he who trained the very first Olympic contingent. He took, and that was supported by the Tatars. And he led the contingent. That's a wonderful story. Likewise, you have several other sports persons who brought laurels to this country. You have tribal community reformers, you have poets, and novelists are covered here, and also British Raj academicians, administrators, and professionals are also covered here. The last one. And so in this, I have tried to trace how Christian pioneers helped to document, preserve, and standardize Indian languages, and their work created the very foundations for education and literacy. There's so much, I tell you, that we need to know about the language mission, the educational mission, and how it contributed to modern India, to journalism, printing, and literature. And they made a lasting impact on modern Indian identity and scholarship, and that continues to have importance of their linguistic and literary heritage in contemporary India. Thank you very much. Thank you for your patient hearing.
Indian Christian Day. Yeshu Bhakti Divas. Love, serve, and celebrate.